Oops. Hey, you guys. I guess it would help if I would actually open up the camera flap. Good thing nobody was in here first. Hey, you guys. Hey, hey. I am going live today. I can't wait to talk to you guys about this really, really important topic. Let me just make some adjustment. Oops, I don't want to do that. Make some adjustments here on my screen so that I can see you guys. And you're getting me in my walking splendor. I put this hat on and it's not coming off. I can see someone's already joined me. Jump in and say hi. I would love to see who's here with me. I am talking about a topic that is, this is so incredibly important. You know, I talk about our empowerment a lot. I talk about becoming our own authority. And the reason why intuition is so important is because the ultimate act of becoming our own authority is learning to trust our intuition. So many times through life, we hear women's intuition. We hear it all the time, women's intuition. And it's been really kind of tragic because it has made men feel like they don't have what it is that women have. But the truth is that we are all human beings and we are all divine sparks of God. We all are spirit in a human body. And that means that we have the ability to be intuitive. I think I talk about it in my book in this way. I say, God didn't come to a slow roll and throw us off the bus and say, okay, I'm going to see you guys after a while. Good luck out there. Uh-uh. We came here with this inner guidance system to help us because the this is a school. Earth is a school, and it can be extremely difficult at times, especially being in a human body. If we were only in our spirit body, we're not, which is not a body, the spiritual essence, it would not be difficult. But we now have a brain, we now have programming, we have fears, and we have belief systems. We have all kinds of things that come into place that can really jack us up on this spiritual journey. But there's one thing that I know for sure, and that is the more that I got in touch with my intuition, the easier life became. But this can be a hard thing for some people because intuition is a whisper and fear is a shout. So, what is the ego mind? The ego mind is fear, and it is hammering us all day long, telling us things that we're not good at, telling us what we should be afraid of, telling us what the right belief is. Whatever it's doing, it's telling us things that is trying to keep us small and constricted and stuck because its job is to keep us safe. If it was up to the ego, it would probably put us in a box and never allow us out to see the light of day because danger, 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 right? And this is the reptilian mind. This is, some people call it the caveman mind. We needed this part of ourself in order to survive. It's a crucial element. It's part of us and it is in place for a reason. So we never want to talk about killing the ego or hating on the ego. The ego is it's a loud voice, but it's not a very strong voice. It's the ego is actually very weak. And this is something that I speak about in my book that is newly released is The Recovering People Pleaser, a spiritual guide to reclaiming your true worth and attract the love you deserve. This book was launched on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, which just happened. It'll be a week tomorrow, which is crazy to me because this whole week has been a blur. But my book, we even had our launch hour, which was in the morning, I got an email from my publisher that said that it had already become a bestseller in 2 countries. So this is a really great book and one that I believe if you guys are interested in is something that can help you shift your disempowered relationship patterns, your pattern of being in a lopsided and painful relationships. It can help you to heal the shame and worthiness within that is promoting you to perpetuate these patterns because that hidden shame and unworthiness is actually causing us to show up in the way that we are showing up. So we're going to heal all the things in this book. It's how we shift the foundation that is inside of us so that we can show up from a completely different mindset, a completely different energy that's going to yield the most amazing results in your life. So I was talking about the ego being weak, and I talk about this in the book because when I started really doing work with my ego, which is what I decided to do, I was like, okay, I got this voice that's constantly hammering at me and it's scaring me and it's making me anxious and it's creating more fear inside of me. When I started doing the work with my ego, what I realized is that this ego wasn't strong. It's just loud. It's just always hammering at us because it's trying to keep us safe. But it is not strong. It is actually quite weak. So when we actually start to do the work to deal with our ego and to handle that hammering that's coming at us, we're going to notice if we do the work in the correct way that that ego voice is going to fade away and the voices of God is going to and the essence of God and the energy of God is going to take its place. So it's important to know that we are in one of two parts of our psyche at any given time. And that is the ego mind, or that is our God mind, is what I like to call it. So we can also call it our lower self, and we can call it our higher self. We can call it the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder, whatever you decide to call this. Okay. So we're either in this or we're in this. There's no in between. There's no gray when it comes to this. So we're either listening to this part of ourselves or we're listening to this part of ourselves. And this part of ourselves is our direct connection with spirit, with God, source, universe, whatever your chosen name or label is for the energy, all knowing energy of infinite intelligence that is only love. Okay. I'm comfortable with the word God, so I'm going to be using that word a lot. So the key is to get in touch with this feeling, is to get in touch with this more. And that message that comes to us via our intuition is always, without question, 100% correct for our next best step. It can also warn us of impending danger. It can also give us heads up about situations. It can also protect us. So, where the ego is yelling at us and trying to scare us, this intuitive voice is a very gentle and calm nudge in the right direction. So, you guys might have experienced intuition in the form of nudges or hunches or instincts, things like that. Everybody calls it something different. Some people call it a sixth sense. There's all kinds of ways that people try to explain intuition. I'm just going to call it intuition because that's the word that I'm comfortable with. So, in this broadcast today, what I'm hoping to help you guys with is to really develop your intuition because we all have it. There's no person on this planet that is without intuitive abilities, but we have to cultivate it. It's kind of like if you were given the gift of artistry, you were like some type of painter. You were given that gift, but you never cultivated it, right? You would probably think you didn't really have it, or you didn't think, it was just a whim that one day you just, happened to create a beautiful piece of art. But it also takes practice because even people that are good at specific talents and things that they were given, they still have to practice. In fact, one of my favorite stories about this is the drummer Neil Peart from the band Rush. It depends on your age. You might know the band Rush, you may not. It's a rock band. And this band was a three-man band, the most amazing guys you'd ever see. I highly suggest that you watch their documentary on Netflix, just such amazing individuals. But the drummer Neil Peart has been often regaled as the best drummer in the entire world. Think about that. The best drummer in the entire world. And somewhere around the age of early 60s, I think it was, he actually went and got drum lessons from a particular person because he was still fine tuning his talent. He was still fine tuning his craft. So, no matter if it is painting or drumming or playing tennis or whatever it might be for you, or your intuition, it's going to require that you cultivate it, that you say, okay, I do know that I have this thing, and I'm willing to do what it takes to start trusting it more. I will tell you this right now, you guys, that there is no decision that I make in life that I do not consult my intuition. If it's an important decision, you know what? That's not even true because I will even consult my intuition, my inner knowing, when it's something like, it's 7 o'clock at night and I'm tired. And I'm like, okay, should I go to the grocery store tonight? And I just get quiet about it. And a yes or a no will come in. And it feels like, here's the thing about intuition, you guys, is that it's always a calm, still, neutral voice. There is no emotions with intuition. And this is going to be one of the biggest things that you can learn as you're cultivating your intuition is that there is no emotion attached to it. Okay. There's no judgment on the other side in the God realm. There is no emotions. There's none of those things that are of earthly form in the God realm. So it's not going to come at you and go, some type of judgmental way or with any sort of tone. There's never tone when it comes from source. Okay. It's neutral and it's calm, even when it's warning you. Okay. I think this is a great way. Thank you for the thumbs up. I would appreciate it if anybody else wants to give me a thumbs up as you're listening to this. And I would also like you to say hi in the chat down here and let me know where you're from so I can say hi to you. Okay. So I want to tell you one particular story of my intuition that happened when I think I was about 14 years old. I can't remember if I was in 8th grade or freshman year. I was a young freshman, so it could have been that. But anyway, I was at a girlfriend's house and we were playing and hanging out, and she had a horse corral in the back. And in this area of Arizona, there's, a lot of people have acre lots, and then they have these big 6-foot block walls that surround their properties. And many times they have horse corrals and stuff in the backyard. But the brick wall will delineate your yard with another person's yard. So all of a sudden we heard all this racket going on, or we saw all this dust or something flying up in the backyard. And so we went out back, and my girlfriend's calling for her dog, which was this kind of chubby black lab, his name was Tar. And he just kind of came ambling out of a section right next to us, and she's like, "What is going on in the horse corral?" Anyway, long story short, a dog had jumped the wall and was attacking her horses, like literally biting them and cutting them up, which, by the way, they both ended up, we needed to call in the vet and to have a little stitch up surgery. So anyway, we managed to corral the dog, talk to her father, and then me, her, and her stepsister all decided, she goes, "I know whose dog that is." So we decided to hop the brick wall and go to this person's house, which the way their house was situated, when we hopped the block wall, we were not in their backyard, we were in their driveway. So we hop the block wall, we go into their carport, and we knock on the door. And the guy opens the door, and she's like, "Yeah, we have your dog. This and that happened, yada, yada." And he said, "Oh, it's not my dog. I'm house sitting this dog for somebody else. And they're in Europe, but go ahead, come on in. I'm just finishing something up. And then, we'll go over there." So my two friends went in his house, and something said, "Don't go in there. Don't go in there." And it didn't go, "Don't go in there." It just goes, "No, don't go in there." It was calm, it was quiet, it was neutral, it was the voice of God, just like I explained to you that it sounds like. And I said, "Okay," and I didn't go in there, and I just stood there in the doorway, and he kept going, "Come on in, come on in." And I was like, "No, no, I'm good. I'm good." And I kept looking in there. This is 14 years old, you guys. Anyway, long story short, they ended up coming out. He says, "Let's go over to the car." And the way these blocks were situated, they were very long blocks, meaning house blocks, right? So we could either hop the wall, be back in the backyard, or he would drive us all the way around and, to the front of the house. And like I said, we were back to back. So my girlfriend's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll take a ride." And they had their hands on the door handles and they're ready to hop in his car. And I just walked right by and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to hop the wall." And they're like, "Why? He's going to give us a ride." And I'm like, you guys can take a ride. I'm hopping the wall." And they were just like, "Yeah." And so they followed me. We hopped the wall again and went into the backyard and went to the house. By this time, the police officers had arrived, and the police officer asked her father to remove us from the room. And this is after the guy left and all the things, at the end when it was just the police officer and her father. We left. Excuse me. And when we came back, um, Gus was her father's name. Gus invited us back in and he said, "Let me tell you why the police officer asked you guys to leave the room." He said that man is convicted felon for, I think it was child exploitation is what they called it back in the day, which I think is taking pictures of children. I'm not really sure. But my point is that when and I remember thinking at that time, this is tender age of 14, right? I don't think I had a first kiss, but I mean, very tender age of 14. I remember thinking, that's why that voice told me not to go in there. Okay. It was just like an energy, like it was stopping me from going in this person's house. So this is how it can warn us. It's not always going to come as some screaming thing. That would be the ego. So if the ego is going, don't go in there, don't go in there. It's a stranger's house. That could be bad. Fear, 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 fear. That's not intuition. Okay. Intuition is very calm. And I will tell you this, that as a parent raising my kids and having had these own experiences myself growing up, that I knew it was really important that my children cultivated their own intuition as well, because I couldn't always be there to feel through situations for them. I wanted them to learn that. And I remember the day that I sat them down. This is my two oldest children before my youngest one came, which she got to talk to at some point, because they're like 10 and 12 years apart. These two are 18, 19 months apart. And then this one came 10, 12 years later, 10 and 12 based on their ages. And so I remember saying to them that I really wanted them to learn to trust that feeling, that quiet feeling inside of them, because sometimes you could have somebody that's an authority figure, let's say, like a police officer or a teacher or something like that. And just because they're in the position of power doesn't mean that you need to follow them blindly. I wanted them to learn to trust themselves and to trust that feeling within them. And so that they can make appropriate measures if something had come up, that they could remove themselves from that situation. But I also wanted them to trust people. I didn't want them to have a fear of stranger danger their whole life, right? Because we can really, and now this gets into a touchy topic. So I'm just going to say right off the top, you guys do you. You guys do you. I'm not telling you what to do. But I didn't want my kids to grow up fear based where they were afraid to talk to any person anywhere, right? I wanted them to learn to trust who was safe and who was not safe. So sometimes it could be, a homeless person walking down the street or just whatever, someone. And if you got the wrong, like, let's say it's a woman. A lot of times people trust women more than they trust men. But if you got an icky vibe from a lady, that's an icky vibe, and it's time for you to remove yourself. Or if you got an icky vibe, like I said, from an authority figure, then that's time to remove yourself. Or you could get a beautiful, loving, gorgeous, safe feeling from someone that looks like maybe untraditionally that you shouldn't trust them. And I will tell you that teaching my kids this was one of the best things I ever did, because I can't be there to protect them. That actually tears up my eyes, because as a mother, that's what I want to do. But I knew I had to arm them with the most powerful thing that they could possibly have, and any of us can have, all of you guys. And this is why I want to talk to you about this, because I want you to arm you with your intuitive instincts, because they will never, ever, 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 ever lead you astray. They're 100% right on all the time. But the tricky part, guys, right, is learning to trust what's fear, what's intuition, what's logic, what's into, like, where does all of this play in? How do I know when it's my intuition? The best and simplest way I can say this is how I've already explained it to you guys. It's a calm, still, neutral feeling voice. It is a whisper. Now, I'm not saying it's like this, a whisper. I mean, if there's a way that we can compare it, ego's a shout, intuition is a whisper. Okay. So ego has tone. It's like, oh my God. And there's a frenzy kind of panicky feeling to the ego when it's talking to us, where the intuition is soft and neutral. Doesn't mean its volume is low. It just means that it's soft and neutral. As with anything, the more you practice this, the more you pay attention, the more you set course to go, I want to fine tune my intuitive abilities, the better you're going to get. Okay. Now, it has also been said hands down by every single medium that I've ever come across, psychic medium that talks to people on the other side, every single medium, including Tyler Henry. If you guys know who that is, a young boy. Oh God, he's darling. Tyler Henry and Teresa Caputo. I just had a medium reading that was gifted to me probably about 3 months ago. She was absolutely incredible. Every single medium I've ever come across has said to me, we're all mediums. We can all cultivate this mediumship. In fact, quick sidebar, I am going to have a gal on my podcast who talks about death and grief and mediumship. That's going to be coming up soon. I've reached out to her and we're going to set that up pretty soon. Hi, Andrea from Seattle. I didn't know you're in Seattle. I love Seattle. Oh my gosh, I've been there a few times. By the way, I was there for your heat wave. Was that July of last year or the year before? So I left Phoenix. I just got to say this because it's fun. I left Phoenix, me, my boyfriend, my husband, and my two friends. No, I don't have a sidebar. I do not have a boyfriend. I just misspoke. But I was like, "Oh, let's go somewhere it's hot, no, no, no," because it's hot in Phoenix in the summer. And so we're like, "Where's rainy and cool?" We're like, "Seattle, let's go to Seattle." So we load up, we go to Seattle. Guess what we walked into? 109 degrees. No one has what do you call it? Air conditioning. Stores are closed down. It's humid as hell. Yeah, that was last year. But I'm gonna tell you something. I had a blast. It's all about what you make of things. Yeah, it was hot, but news to me. I'm used to that, right? And it was really fun because the hotel that we were staying in, I don't remember right now. I'm sure you would know, Andrea. It was like the Hyatt downtown or something. But anyway, all these people were in there with their dogs. They were pet friendly, and so people were getting out of their houses because it was too darn hot, and they were shacking up at the hotel with their dogs. It was wonderful. So anyway, I want to continue going, and I'm glad you're here, Andrea. And anybody else here, please say hi. All right, you say hi to me. I'd like to know who's here. I wish we could have some faces on here too, but that'll come. So let me keep going. Um, Again, there's two sides of the psyche. There's our God self, higher self. You might want to call it the angel self. And yep, she had to go to a hotel too to go. I am sure you did. I mean, yeah. Welcome to my summers in Arizona. And they can go up even higher than that. Oh, hi, Daryl. Okay, my friend Daryl's here too as well. Daryl and I talk a lot about intuition over on the Wisdom app. He's one of my besties, and we have many, many deep conversations. So if you guys haven't yet joined the Wisdom app, you might want to think about doing that. It's free. It's super easy. You just type wisdom into your app store, and it's like a little icon of like the profile of Einstein. And I think it's got like a rainbow sort of color behind it now. Not like a total rainbow, but like there's a spectrum of color behind it now. But it's really easy app to find. It's a really easy app to navigate. So um Dahara, weird details come up rarely and they turn out to be true. Okay. See, I don't know what's going on with my light here right now, but it's kind of going in and out. But yes, I love that. I'm going to call you Dahara. I might say it wrong. It might be Dara. Um, so if that's the case, I apologize for misspeaking. I am a stickler for pronouncing these people's names right. And I will ask them, even if it's my server somewhere, I will say, how do I pronounce your name? And I did it with all my hair clients, and everybody really appreciated that. But I wanted to pronounce you. I want to honor you by pronouncing Dahara? Okay, so I think I got that right. Right on. All right, so let's continue forward. We're all born with this. We're all born with this, but sometimes the fear brain, the beliefs, the programming, the conditioning, all these things can drown it out. And this is part of us fracturing from our whole self, our soul self that is inside, our complete spirit, right? It's complete. It's complete. Like there's nothing that needs to be added or subtracted from who we are internally. It's absolutely complete. So that whole thing where we heard on Jerry Maguire, you complete me, that's really romantic to say, but nobody can complete us. We are already complete, but we fracture away from our sense of self because of the outside world. And this is what happens. Now, I want to go into real quick why I believe that I cultivated my intuition young. And I thought everybody had this. I thought everybody was good at this. I thought it was because I was never told otherwise. And it was just the way, frankly, it was an organic and natural way that I functioned through life. It was those things came up for me, and I was like, oh, okay. And I would speak them out and I would say them to people and I would say things. But what I noticed was that the outside world wasn't as receiving. And it was really mind blowing for me, you guys, because I did not understand. I was a little girl the first time I remember an intuitive hit. I talk about this story in my book, but the first time I remember it was in first grade. I was 7 years old when I had an inner knowing that I was going to win the drawing for this little hamster. One of the classmates was giving up his hamster, and I knew immediately. The inner knowing said, "That's yours." I don't remember the exact words, and I was like, I knew I didn't even have to go home and ask my parents because this was already going to be mine. So my point is, it came very, very young, but in hindsight, looking back, knowing what I know now at this age that I'm at, and all of the processing through my intuition and trusting my higher self, trusting God, trusting source, trusting the messages in the way that they come. I want to write that down. I'm going to write way they come so that I can remember to go there. I get really sidetracked sometimes because so much is coming in at the same time to me that and then I end up speaking really fast. So I'm just got to write. That's why I have my pad of paper here so I can write stuff down and remember. So where was I? Okay. So through all of this stuff, and then I learned about the four clairs. Okay. Now let me write down the four clairs if I haven't talked about that. So I don't want to go there now. What I realized going forward in life is that I spent a lot of time alone. I don't mean this in a bad way. I wasn't abandoned or anything like that. I was the only girl in a neighborhood full of boys. A lot of times by the time I got up or got ready or whatever it was, my brothers were off doing whatever they were doing and I was left at home alone because they're just, they're going to hit the ground running first thing in the morning. So, whatever it might be, but I was spent a lot of time alone, but during that time alone, we didn't have social media. We had that dumb TV in the corner that was about this thick, right? And you had to get up and turn the channels of the thing. And even the stuff that was on there was just silly little sitcoms and things like or shows that I wasn't interested in, like the Rockford Files, stuff that my dad would watch, Hawaii Five-O, those type of things. So anyway, we had one TV, and if my dad was home, he was watching it. Okay. So there was a lot of time to be alone. And in that time of being alone, what I noticed is that I did things that when I was doing things, I really got into this different realm. And I now look at that time as meditation. And I didn't know it at that time, but I got into a different realm. I remember riding my bike first thing in the morning, I just wanting to be outside and getting on my bike. So this is part of something I'm going to mention later. But I would get out on the bike and I would just ride my bike. And mind you, when we are children, we don't have the worries of bills and if our child is sick and our spouse doesn't like us or is mad at us or something's happening with the boss at work or the company's having a takeover or whatever. We don't have all those things. So we're typically a cleaner conduit, a cleaner vessel. And this is why out of the mouth of babes, sometimes kids will say stuff and you're like, what the hell? Because it's coming through them. It's intuitively coming through them. It is wisdom of the Most High, not acquired wisdom on the path, but wisdom of the Most High that is actually coming through them. So I'd ride my bike and I would just kind of be in this la la land. And I talk about God being my best friend or being my friend, my playmate is what I say, because I would be, doing my thing out by myself. And I remember wanting to talk to somebody and wanting to have conversation and wanting to share like what I was seeing and things like that. So I would talk to God. Now, fortunately for me, God was not presented to me as a scary thing, as a fear based thing, as something that was going to hurt me or, put me in hell. Well, my religion later did that, put me in hell. But at this stage of the game, God was just energy. In fact, I don't even know if my mom ever said God to me. I don't know exactly because I was so young. My mom was super intuitive too. And so that's another story. However, it wasn't put into me, but it wasn't taken out of me either. So I would just talk to this energy, this essence God. And then I noticed again over time that things started coming up for me that were like really serving in my life. And like I mentioned earlier, many of those things would save me, like stop me from potential harm and threat. So I would do that. I would also sit on the curb out in front of my house and I would like play in the dirt, right? I would just like take a stick and I would draw on the dirt and do things like this. Well, that's very meditative as well. I also wrote poems. Which is really weird. I was a poet when I was littler and I'm not one now by any means. Maybe I could cultivate it, but I would write poems. I'd write a lot. I'd lay in my belly in my bed. I would write a lot. I'd watch my goldfish. Okay. We had a lot of cats growing up. This was like free love at the Gone household. I mean, cats, they just reproduce, this is what they did. And so we had always kittens. Like every spring, there was a pile of kittens somewhere. And if I went and looked in the bushes, there'd be kittens, right? And we'd play with those kittens and do all those things. So for those of you animal lovers, our cats were always well taken care of. They were very well taken care of. And at some point, my mom finally got hip to the jive and we literally packed up 7 cats and took them to the vet and had them all fixed. And she made me name them that morning. So girls were named Chester, boys were named Sally. I mean, it was like I named them all. She loaded them all up in the family van and she took them to the vet. They all got fixed. So it stopped this crazy reproduction. We didn't have like 100 cats or anything like that. But anyway, I digress. So I was always doing something that kept me out of my thinking mind, okay? And this was kind of a luxury to be honest with you because not a lot of kids can have that space because they might be growing up in a household that is abusive or toxic or alcoholic or there's something going on, but that doesn't mean they can't, all right? Because a lot of times those kids will do things to get away from the environment and I there's some things that the brain will do for us that will help us with in those type of environments. So I know a lot of people that were raised in rough environments that, they did cultivate a really extreme sense of intuition because they had to become hyper tuned in to what was going on with the people in their life, all right? And then the hyper tuned in, some of it, yes, was facial cues and body tells and things like that, but some of it was just energy. Like they could feel the energy of this person and they would learn how to remove themselves when this was coming up. So anyway, through these type of practices in hindsight, I realized that I think that's how I really believe, no one's ever told me this, so this is coming from me. I believe that is why I was able to develop my intuition because as things started coming up, as I tell you about the hamster story in first grade, as things started coming up, when I had that feeling, I was just sitting there in class just listening. She's like, if anybody wants this hamster, his name was Tweety. If anybody wants this hamster, go home and ask your parents and you can come back and your name could be in the drawing. And I remember just sitting there quiet and going, whatever the message was, it's yours. Went home, did my due diligence, asked my parents. She drew Kristen. I just knew, carried home, first grade, my little hamster in his little cage and went home. So, but when something like that happens, there was a part of me that was untainted that said, oh, keep a lookout for that. And I don't mean this type of lookout. I mean, it was an unconscious thing, but part of my psyche said, trust that, trust that, trust that thing that comes up for you. And many times throughout life, this thing came up for me. And I also later, see, this is where it gets a little wishy washy for me because I'm also what I call an energy reader. And I still believe that is under the intuitive umbrella, but sometimes it's not a message that comes to me. I'm saying this, that's not always through the mouth. It's not always a message that comes to me. It's a feeling I get. And it's just like an ooh kind of feeling or a very drawn to feeling. And again, this is what I was saying earlier about teaching my kids to trust their intuition. This, it could be about the most randomest people, and I would have this intuitive feeling towards this person. So, with that being said, it's really important that we get in touch with our intuition because it is actually I do talk a lot about being a recovering people pleaser, reclaiming your personal power and becoming your own authority. Get this. There is no better way you can become your own authority than to trust your intuition. That is a direct stream. It's streaming from the universe. It is our connection with the highest intelligence of the universe, y'all. Okay. It doesn't get any better than this. And it's never, ever, ever, ever wrong. So sometimes people say, like, well, my intuition was wrong. I had an intuition about this, but it was wrong. Then it wasn't your intuition. Fact be known, it was not your intuition because intuition is never wrong. But there's a growth point right there. If you go, gosh, I thought that was my intuition, but it wasn't. All right. Where's the distinction? How can I tell the difference between the way that felt and the way my intuition felt? Recently, this happened to me. I'm an intuitive mofo. I trust my intuition above anything, but somehow I must have gotten heady up in the nog and something happened. I thought, that's my intuition. And I said something or did something. It later turned out it wasn't my intuition. I wasn't even close. And I was like, I had to stop and say, okay, that has not happened in a very long time. So I sat there and I went, what was that? What was that? And then I saw my ego was involved. My ego was involved and it was very clear to me. And I said, oh, okay. And that's what you guys need to understand is that the ego is cunning. The ego knows how to even disguise itself as your intuition. However, there is a distinct, different feeling. Even if it's talking to you like this, there is a distinct, different feeling. So when that intuition comes in, what I tell myself is I will sit with it because normally it comes when I'm quiet. It can't come when I'm busy, when I'm, you know, doing something like talking to somebody. Well, it can. Okay, that's not true. It can. Overthinking. Let's say that. It can't come when I'm overthinking. It can't come when I'm in fear zone. It can't come when my nervous system is activated. If there's too much racket going up in the nog, I can't receive. Okay. So but when it does come, it's usually comes when I'm in a quiet space. Either I'm driving, so much happens when I'm driving, so much happens when I'm meditating, so much happens right upon it must be a particular brain. You know how we have those brain waves that we get into as we fall asleep and stuff? Well, and they're all throughout the night. Like they'll go up and they'll go down, they'll up and they go down. Well, there's a certain brainwave state that now this is in recent years. Well, I will start receiving in that brainwave state, and it's something simple. Okay. Intuition is not complicated. It's not going to give you a paragraph. It's not going to keep rambling. It's not going to try to convince you. It's just going to go boop and it's going to give you the information. And it's up to you to say, okay, what was that? So when these things have come for me, when come to me, and let's say I'm driving and I feel that hit, that's what I call it, intuitive hit. When I feel that hit, and it's not a hit, it's more of like an intuitive feather, but when I feel it or hear it or see it or whatever it might be, I sit with it. And what'll happen is that feeling it'll start to expand. But remember, it's not an obnoxious feeling. Okay. It's a very peaceful feeling, but there's going to be this feeling of expansiveness. And I'm always talking about over my heart center. Okay. So I'll feel this little feeling of expansiveness come, and then I'll say, okay, I heard you. I get you. Now, we can listen to that. We can second guess it. We can overthink it. We can say logically that doesn't sound correct. Okay. But once you realize, or once you get in tune with how your intuition is going to sound, feel, look, whatever it might be for you, you will start to learn to trust your intuition, your higher self. Now, I mentioned this earlier when we talk about our intuition and we might want to speak it to somebody else. Pause. I'm getting a little thirsty here. And Andrea, I see your question, so I'm going to come to that. And I love your little emoji there. What was I saying? Other people. Okay. So many times, kind of like the same thing when I was in that house of that child guy, the child exploiter, pedophile, whatever it might be. They called it child exploitation back then. So I'm not sure if that's different than pedophilia. Anyway, when I would say to my friends, I'm not doing that, that doesn't feel right to me, they were like, what do you mean? What's the big deal? They were discounting it. We can't convince people of what we're feeling. They're not in the same space and they didn't receive the same hit because, and this is where it gets really important, intuition is highly specified to you. It's highly specified about where you are at on your journey. It's going to be for you. Okay. Now, let's say those girls did get that same feeling, but they discounted it. Maybe they did. Maybe Spirit was speaking all of us in simulcast. That could have been it. He could have been using StreamYard, whatever it was. However, didn't pick up on it doesn't mean that mine is wrong. So part of becoming our own authority in life is trusting our inner self, our inner guidance above all else. Now, I've gotten to a place in my journey where people don't get to talk me out of stuff. In fact, they'll get the hand. I'm like, don't even bother. And I don't say it in a disrespectful, mean way, but when someone's like, well, don't you think that maybe and kind of, and how about, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, not getting that. Not getting that. Okay. Or I'm saying, this is what I know to be true. And they're going, no, 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 that's not it. That's not it. Mm-mm. When you've had an intuitive hit, it is 100% true for you. All right. It's just like when in January of 2022, when I woke up one day and I was like, it's time to write my book, the one that I just published, The Recovering People Pleaser. I was like, "Okay." Like, it just kinda came as a little intuitive whisper that kind of floated through my psyche, and that's the thing, it'll come and it'll go. It doesn't hang around, it doesn't linger. And this is a great segue into what Andrea is asking. She said, "I struggle with the fear that comes up first, maybe my ego self." This requires another sip of water. Andrea, I don't know if you're still in here, but yes, it is your ego self. That's all it ever is. Any sort of perceived fear in the psyche is of the ego. And I need to make this clear too, so everybody knows that I'm not talking about fear like you're walking down a dark alley in the middle of New York City and you're feeling some fear. Okay, that's normal, all right? Or you're about to bungee jump or anything like that or whatever it might be. I don't want to come up with scenarios. What I'm trying to say is that those are normal fears that might come up. You're like, "Oh, this is kind of scary," right? However, I will tell you, your intuition is going to tell you if you're safe or not. Okay. I mean, as ironic as that may seem, your intuition is going to tell you, yeah, don't do that. Or it's going to say, you're right. Just go fast. Don't lollygag, whatever it might be. So if that comes up first for you, it's always important to hear this. And this is Course in Miracles 101. All right. The ego is always the first and loudest voice in your head. Okay. The first and loudest voice. All right. Because it's trying to control. It's a controlling mofo and it wants you to do the things it wants you to do. And it does it by manipulating and controlling you through fear. I mentioned earlier that it's cunning. It's cunning. It's going to come up with the most insane scenarios or things to say to you to try to get you to stay small. Now, keep in mind, the spirit self, the God self, yes, get quiet first. Yes, sister. The God self, the spirit self is, first of all, it is all about free will. There's no control. You get to be on your own journey. You get to make your own choices. Here, I'm going to bring this into you, but you get to make your own choices. You get to do your own thing. So it's never about control. So having that delineation right there, that if this is yelling and screaming and making me panic, it is not your intuition. It is not your intuition. Your intuition is going to say, quit your job. Can you guys hear me? I said that kind of quietly. Take the next job or pass that house or grab this book. See what I'm saying? Go talk to that person. It's going to be very, very simple, succinct sentences. Okay. But the brain will get involved and go, what do you mean? I don't know that person. I don't want to go talk to that person. I'm shy. I'm this. I'm an introvert. I'm all these things. I don't want to go, that's when we screw ourselves up. But when we get super in touch with listening to that voice and we start following it, guess what happens, you guys? We get better at it. We get better at it. All right. So I want to go down. Okay. So I just wrote here, way they come. Oh, the way intuition comes. I'm like, what was my note about? All right. This is another important thing about learning to develop your intuition. Just like I said, when I was a little girl and I felt that feeling in that way, then later I was like, when that feeling came again, I knew exactly what it was. You got to get in touch with, you don't got to anything, just how I talk. I invite you to get in touch with the way it comes for you. Okay. And it can come in one of four different ways. There's claircognizant, which is clear knowing, which is what I came up with, which I got first was just this knowing. This knowing came over me. And I was like, I just knew what I knew, what I knew, what I knew, what I knew. And it was 100% right. And what was frustrating about that for me growing up is that I knew things. And being a small little girl with a little voice and a little body, and I would try to tell people these things that I knew, and just like I was like a fly bothering them, right? They didn't want to listen to me. So when that started happening, I started again because my ego head started saying, don't share those messages. You're going to be disapproved of. You're a bother. You're annoying. See? And this is the stuff we unpack in the recovering people pleaser is these things these messages that come to us that become our patterned way of thinking. So I stopped sharing what I knew with other people because I was afraid I was going to get disapproved of. Now, this took time. This was over time. And I really remember it. I don't remember sharing a lot. I remember one particular thing, and I'll tell you guys about that. Let me write it down. Ew, just grosses me out, this guy. But anyway, I'll write that down. There's one time in 4th grade that something came up for me, but it was like it happened more in high school, okay? Because there's not a lot of things I needed hits with as I was coming up through the years, just certain things that were telling me what I was going to win or telling me that turn this way or go that way or warned me of danger. But coming up into high school, I could sit with people and they could tell me, I still have this gift to this day. It's actually gotten even bigger where I could sit with people and they're telling me whatever's going on. And I'm telling you, it is like I knew exactly what to tell these people, and I was in freaking high school. So I didn't have all this experience behind me. I didn't have all this earned wisdom from experiences healed behind me. I just had this like constant stream of wisdom that I would share with people. And sometimes people didn't want to listen. And sometimes people it was too much truth for them. It was too much light shining on them, and they didn't want to be seen. They didn't want to know that truth that they knew. Okay. And this is a lot of times why people discount their intuition. Another reason why is because when we recognize something and we're like, this is what it is. I'm getting the message. I know what it is, but I'm going to ignore that because this might require me doing something hard, making a decision I don't want to make, or leaving somebody's life or quitting a job or whatever it might be. You get my drift. It could be something that I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with doing that. I don't really want to do that. That's scary, right? It's unknown. So we might try to discount things that we're getting because it's giving us information that is of truth, but we're not really wanting to do that thing. So I started speaking out my things. To be honest with you guys, I was like a walking, talking psychic reader, and it wasn't like it was all day long every day. That's not what I'm saying. But if someone talked to me, I'd be like, oh, well, and I would share this thing with them, the tender age of high school years, right? And they'd be like, and they, would grimace or they would stop talking to me because there was too much truth. So I started to not sharing it out loud to other people. And this is something I had to work towards gaining back as I became a coach because I had such a massive programming around not sharing my intuitive hits with people that I had to work on that in my coaching practice because they were coming and I often will connect with people, especially if they're my first time client. I will, they will send their intake form. That's why I make sure their intake form comes to me at least 24 hours before their session. Days is even better because I will read their intake form and I won't just read it, I will feel it. And then I will plug it in. It's almost like I put a little plug in and I'm like, all right, Margaret. And I'll plug that in. And then I get quiet. I go about my daily task. And then I'll get these messages start coming in about Margaret. I don't have a Margaret, making that name up. These messages will start coming in. Then I'll grab a piece of paper that I'm going to use for their session. I will make all my notes for them before they even come in the door. Okay. So I've learned now, and I also ask permission. That's an yeah, you guys, people sometimes don't want us saying stuff to them. So, we're just gonna go throw our intuitive hits willy-nilly all over the place, like really random and recklessly. Yeah, sometimes people don't like that. And so I will ask the permission of them. I will say, okay, I made some notes before you. Sometimes I'll even tell them this because I want them to trust it came, excuse me, before they came in. I will say, I made some notes before you came in. I will flash it at them. And I'll say, just so you know, like when it comes to the appropriate time in our conversation, I'm going to share these with you. And they're always like, okay. Most people are really excited about this. This is why mediums do so well in the world. This is why psychics and card readers and oracle card readers and those type of things tend, if you're good, like if you're legit and real, because we know there's a lot of falsies out there, but they do really good in the world because it's exciting, because the spirit likes the messages because it's validation, right? So when we have somebody validating our experience, it can feel really awesome because we're like, oh my God. So recently, just a quick sidebar, I had a medium reading 3 months ago or so, and then one of my dear friends gave me an oracle card reading. And in her oracle card reading, she's giving me all this stuff, and she was like, I think she thought she was shocking me. She's like, "I know, I just read what's coming out of the cards." And I said, "No, dear sister." I said, "You're validating everything." Because I am so in touch with myself and my intuition that I'm already getting kind of hits on, not already, kinda, I am. I'm getting hits on things. And then she came in with her card deck and read for me. And it was everything, I was like, wow, validate, 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 validate. It was so much validation about what I had received. So she's a clear conduit of spirit and sharing it with me with permission. And I'm a clear conduit of spirit having my own stuff. And the two things magically aligned, which was really beautiful and magical because it gave me a more certainty than I may have had if it was just me. Because even though intuition is true, sometimes there's still just that, yeah, this is true, how I feel this thing. I'm trying to unpack this in real time while I'm talking to you. Let me unpack this for a minute. I'm feeling this thing to be true, but I'm not really convinced yet. That's really the only way I can explain it because the mind might have a lot of fear around that particular topic in your life. So you feel that's the right thing to do, but yet you got this weights and measures things going, right? It's in your brain. It's like, I feel it, but over here is yammering at you. Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, but I feel this, but it's something that has been in place for a while for you, maybe a fear around a particular thing. Let's say you had a fear around public speaking and your intuition says, go to this group and give a talk. And you're like, okay, I know that's true, but then you have someone from the outside come in and say, you're supposed to be talking at this group. And you're like, okay, see what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to unpack for you guys. All right, I'm gonna take another sip of water. All right, so the next thing I wanted to say is that your intuition is going to come to you in a specific way for you. And it could come in any way. It could come via any of the four clairs that I'm about to share with you. I just was listening to a podcast not long ago, and the person said that the inner knowing, the claircognizant, we all already have, and the other clairs are cultivated. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, first of all, the claircognizant, the clear knowing was my first clair. That was the one that I attached to. It's just I knew what I knew, what I knew, what I knew. It's a hard clair to have too, because I'm gonna say hard, challenging in the way because when you know what you know what you know, you have nothing to substantiate it. Okay. It didn't come in a way that is, I'm just going to say tangible, but that's light. And I'll unpack that in a second. Right. It's just, I just know. And people are like, well, why do you know? And you're like, I just know. And they're like, why do you know? And like, I just know. And then they're like, oh, because you know it all. Right. The very first book I ever read regarding this type of thing was called Are You Really Too Sensitive? It's by Marcy Calhoun. If I can find it, I'll grab it and bring it over here. If I see it quickly, I will scan the bookshelf. I will bring it over here for you guys. But it was the very first one. I don't see it. It could be on my nightstand, but it was the very first. Oh, now I found it. Hold on. Stand by. Here it is. Okay. This was the very first book I ever read. I only grabbed it because I was at a bookstore. It was my first metaphysical bookstore ever. And it just jumped off the shelf to me. It was like, are you really too sensitive? Well, people had called me too sensitive much of my life. They're like, oh, you're too sensitive. Well, that's because I was picking up on shit and I was knowing stuff and I was reading energy and this stuff was happening for me. So when I got this book, from Marcy Calhoun. I don't even know if it's still in print. She's a cute little thing. Look at little Marcy. If I could talk to Marcy now. But anyway, if she even knew what this book did for me, it was kind of my church. It validated, in fact, I might read it again just for fun, but it validated so much of what was going on inside of me. It was the first time. Because even though my mom was intuitive, she didn't run around talking about it all the time. She said things like, "Oh, a little birdie told me." Okay. So, she wasn't really talking about it. But when I read this, I I think it's this book. It could be another one because I have other books by Sanaya Roman that I read about this. But one of those books says that claircognizant, this is the long way around for me to tell you guys this, that claircognizant is one of the hardest clairs to have because people will call you a know-it-all. Okay. And you become, what's the word? It's not stubborn because stubborn means you won't change your mind about something even if you're proven wrong. And that's not it. It is you don't get proven wrong. Like, you become very steadfast. Like, when I know what I know, what I know, what I know, what I know, nope, I'm gonna stand right here. You guys can all go do that thing, but this is what I'm gonna do. Okay. And people are like, "Ugh, I've gotten the scoffing and the eye rolling." But then it always turns out that my choice was correct. And over time, people started to trust my intuition. Okay. Later, my kids would call me and be like, "Mom, what do you feel about if I go drive up to Flagstaff this weekend?" And here's the thing, too, is that sometimes I can't turn it on. It depends where I'm at, what's happening in my life. And I'm like, well, right now I feel nothing, but that doesn't mean what you got to do, dear child, is tap into your own intuition and say, how does it feel for you? Because we're not going to always get a hit about every single situation. So I'm going to go into what the four clairs are, and then I'm going to give you examples of how I've experienced these four clairs. First one I pretty much outlined really well for you guys, which is clair cognizant, which means clear knowing. You just know what you know, what you know. Okay. The next one, let's do clairvoyant. Clairvoyant is clear seeing. Now, clairvoyant was the first word that everybody used. Clairvoyant. It was kind of like the umbrella term for psychic, because the terms change over the years, right? Um, I don't know if clairvoyant was first or psychic was first. Psychic's not really used that much anymore. I don't know why. I think, I think woo woo was getting a lot of slack back in the day, maybe before this big movement came out where so many other people are talking about this stuff that it's unavoidable now. But, the society tends to, shut things down because everybody's walking around with their egos and whatnot. But clairvoyant means clear seeing. And to me, that means you're going to see pictures in your mind's eye. Okay. It could also come in the form of dreams. It could also come in the forms of billboards. It could come in the form of reading something. It's has something to do with your vision, whether it's your ocular vision out in the material world or it's your inner vision, but there will be a picture of something. So I have a story that I kept getting this intuitive hit that a sister is going to die. Sorry, you guys, this is real life. And it happened every time I was driving home from work. And I did hair, you guys know. I was exhausted when I left work. I've been talking all day. It's the music's on. There's a din in the salon from all the talking and the clinking, the clanking, and all the things. And I'd get in my car and I'd just get really quiet and I would recenter myself for the drive home because I'm going to go home and parent now. So, and then I would have this voice. But the reason why I'm bringing this up or this hit is because it came like a ticker tape, like in New York City when the words are going across the buildings. It was a ticker tape through my mind's eye. And it was about right here. And it said a sister is going to die. Okay. And I think, I don't really remember. This was many years ago. This was 2005. All right. When this happened, I believe there was audio to it. I think I heard it too, but I don't remember. I remember there being a ticker tape though. So that's clairvoyant. I saw something. So I'd be driving and I'll see that. And I was like, okay, first time I kind of discounted it. Well, this went on for weeks, for weeks. And it was only on my drive home. It wasn't any other time. And then I started to question it because it kept coming. And I was like, okay, I don't have any sisters. So how can a sister die? And then I said, oh, maybe it's my sister-in-law's. So I went through my sister-in-law's as I was driving home and I got nope, nope, nope. Like it was like a line. Like I would picture my sister-in-law like a brick wall or something, it would look like a metal wall would go up in front of them. It's not them. So that's clairvoyant. All right. I'm seeing things. Then I was like, well, I have no sisters. It's none of them. Who could it be? Long story short, my very best friend and her daughter were both killed by a drunk driver. My best friend was like a sister to me. My best friend was a sister, get this, the sister of my sister-in-law. Okay? They were sisters, and the young one, Haley, who passed, was a sister. So there was this lot of sisterness. Why it came like that, I could never know. It didn't say a friend's going to die. It didn't say a female friend. It didn't say their names. It said a sister is going to die. So when it happened, then that message stopped coming to me. That's another way you're going to know that it's your intuition, because once the thing happens, it stops coming. Now, Here's the interesting part. Did I walk around afraid or scared because I got that message? No, I didn't. And this might be shocking to some people because, again, God will only give you what you can handle. God's not going to say something to you that your mind and psyche and heart and soul and all the things can't handle. So it knew, the spirit of the universe knew that I could handle this message. And I did handle this message. I didn't walk around afraid, but keep in mind, I have a pretty good relationship that I had cultivated over decades and decades. And the universe knew that I could handle that message. Now, why did I get that message? This was a question that I asked my mom. After this happened, I said, Mom, I got this intuitive hit. In fact, I think I wrote about this story in my first book, From Doormat to Sweet Empowerment. I think this story, I think it is. It is in this book. Because I don't think I wrote about it in Recovering People Pleaser, which, by the way, I don't have my copy in here. It's in my bedroom. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, why do you think that was? Like, why would you warn me that they were going to die? Why? And she goes, I think, not warn me, why would I get a hit about that? And she said, I think you were just getting a warning. I think you were just getting a heads up. Now, being the trauma and drama regarding the whole thing, the fact that I happened the night we were all together at a restaurant, the fact that I was on the scene of the car crash, drunk driver, the fact that I was at the hospital, we discovered that my beloved Wendy, let's make me cry, Wendy died. Because of all those things, I think I needed that heads up so that I could handle it. I think that was way of God holding me in a pillow saying something gnarly's coming, sister. But if I give you a warning, then you're going to know that it's their time. And we're not going to get all into death and dying, because that's one of the reasons why I handle that type of thing better probably than maybe some people, is because the warnings, the heads up that have come for me, but also the heads up that have come to the people that were going to pass. I'm getting kind of really deep into this rabbit hole, but there's many people in my life that had a intuitive hit prior to their own passing. So that tells me that it is of universe, that this is of design. It's the way it was. It's the path they chose, which is sometimes hard for people to wrap their heads around because they're still in their human mind. They're still in their ego. And they're like, well, why would they choose to leave me? Their soul choose to have this experience. And guess what, y'all? This is even, could rock some more boats. Your soul on the other side chose to have this experience with them. Okay. I digress. I don't want to get off on that. That's about the clairvoyant, where I actually saw the pictures. There's been many, 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 many other pictures that I've gotten to, but those are the ones that stick out the most. The next one is clairaudient, clear hearing. Now, this could be that you literally hear with your ears, okay, something. You can hear it from a person. You can hear it from a song. You could hear it out of thin air. For me, it comes in my head. It's audible, but it's in my head. That's hard to explain. It doesn't come through my eardrums. It's audible in my head. An easy example of this, it's going to be about dying again. All right, you guys, sorry. If you don't want to hear this, click out. I'm going to take some water. All right. So I woke up one morning and I was in that theta brainwave state, and I had this message come through my head, and it was audible. It was a song. It had a melody, and I do this. I don't know. I always do that with melody. I think I'm doing waveforms. Audiograms is what my friend Daryl said. I'm not sure he's still in here, but it came in the form of a melody. It was a neutral androgynous voice, but was kind of ethereal and sweet sounding. And the lyrics were, "It's my time to leave you." I've never heard this song before in my life. I cannot at this moment drum up the melody, but this is what it happened. And I'm laying there and I hear this, and I rolled over, and my husband, who was my boyfriend, I said, one of my parents is going to die, and don't try to talk me out of it. And this poor guy just kind of looked at me like, okay. He didn't say anything. And my point of that is that I knew. And because I knew, it felt, I don't want to say okay. That's not the right word. It's never okay. I had a massive panic attack after my mother passed away. Oh, by the way, it was my mom. She passed away 4 or 5 days later. Okay. Um, it doesn't make it okay, but again, that heads up. And I love fiercely, and I'm just thinking right now out loud as I'm talking to you guys. I believe it was because I love so fiercely and so deeply and so completely and wholly that just to have that happen without that heads up maybe would have been more traumatizing to me. But having that heads up helped me. Another thing happened is I had my husband and I were driving down the road. Okay, yeah. So let me back up. This is complicated, guys. I don't see. I'm thinking right now. Do I tell you the whole story? Do I not tell you the whole story? I'll try to make it brief. So I lived with my mother and my stepfather. My mother had cancer for 10 years. My stepfather was sick at the time. My dad had developed cancer. His was fast growing. So basically, there was a little period of time where all three of my parents were in the hospital overlapping each other. Okay. They're like all three of them at the same time. On the drive one time to see my father in the hospital, there was something standing in the middle of the road. And I said to who's now my husband, he wasn't at that time. I said, "What is that?" As we got closer, there was an owl that was probably 3 feet tall. This thing was massive. We got so close to it that we could see its eyes before it took off. Now we started slowing down and stuff too. It was a neighborhood, so we weren't going fast anyway. What's it, 25 miles per hour in a neighborhood? So we're even going slower. But when this thing took off, its wingspan was like, had to been 6 feet. I couldn't believe it was like, whoo, whoo. And this thing just takes off. And I knew it was a message. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't say anything to Doug at that time, but I was like, note to self. Yes, I heart your stories. Thank you. I hear that a lot. Andrea, thank you for that. That's a very sweet validation because my clients say that. I'm like, they're like, oh, tell me your story. I want to hear it. So I'm like, okay. So this big owl, and I was like, good. Like I felt the message. I knew it. And I was like, I didn't want that to be the message. So I kind of discounted it. And this is what the brain will do, you guys. I Googled owls totems, what it means. Some was like upcoming death, this and that. Other ones were like wisdom coming your way. And I'm like, oh, that's what it is. It's the wisdom's coming my way. See how my mind did? I didn't want to know at that moment. I'm like, no. Another time I come home from the hospital. I'm not sure who I was visiting. I came home from the hospital and there was a like probably 6-inch white feather, white, stuck. It was one of those door handles that you push the knob and you push the door in like that. Like it's got the swirly thing and then the button on top. And it was stuck to the push button thing. This big massive white. And I walked up and I looked at that. And again, same feeling. I was like, what's coming? Okay. That's when I knew. And then at some point I had that melody. So I was like, all right, someone's gonna die. It was my mom. Then you guys, my dad died 4 months later and my stepfather a year later. Okay. So all of this was swirling at the same time, but based on the messages that I received, it set me up, for lack of a better word. Okay. It set me up to be able to handle it. Was the only way I can tell you is that to be able to handle it and knowing what I know, and that, we come from love, we return from love, that they were not suffering anymore and all the things, all this together really helped me make it through a really, really disastrous and difficult time of my life. Okay. So that is the clear seeing. It can also come in visuals. Like I'm trying to think of a visual I've had recently. Yeah, nothing super quick is coming to mind, only long stories, and so I don't wanna tell another long story. We're already at a minute 8 here. So, but that's what it comes from, is you'll see some type of picture, okay? Now we're doing the clairsentient, right? So clairsentient is clear feeling, clear sensing. Again, we're gonna sense something, all right? Now, a lot of times we are going to sense it in our heart center, and I always go like this, like across this area of our body, okay, because it's in the heart center. Now, people want to say they feel things in their gut. And there is talks out there that we have neurons in the gut as well as in the heart, neurons meaning nerve cells, okay? I have not researched that, but I have heard many, many times that if you're feeling stuff in your gut and it's not if it's a clenching or any sort of that is not intuition. Okay. Anything in the gut is usually fear. That's where we feel our fear. Okay. So it is still called gut instinct to a lot of people when they're referring to intuition. And that's okay. People call it whatever they call it. But to me, when someone says, well, it's my intuition, I say, where are you feeling it? They're like, well, in my gut. I'm like, where's your gut? And they're like, well, I guess it's not really my gut. It's kind of up here. I'm like, all right. But if they go, well, I feel a clenching or this or that, fear makes us clench, you guys. Fear actually um, affects the bowels. Okay. The stomach and the bowels. Like when we're in a lot of fear, anxiety, that type of thing, it can affect us on the inside. So you're going to have to discern this for yourself. I can't tell you straight up what it is for you, but know this, that it's not going to clench you. There's no clenching. In fact, it's a very expansive feeling and it's brief. It doesn't last a long time. It's like a, do you guys remember watching the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze? Do you guys remember the movie Ghost? It was such a cute movie. But at some point, Whoopi, this is just a visual I use. It's kind of a cheesy visual, but Whoopi, when she didn't, when Patrick Swayze entered her body, she was pretending she was a medium, and then he entered her body, and her coat goes whew, like it kind of like that when he entered her body. That's sort of what it feels like for me, anyway. Things don't fly out on me. There's not like wind, but it's a like just a it's like breath, it's spaciousness, it's air. It's just for like almost undetectable. And that's the thing, which reminds me of something. I remember when I was going through my tsunami, which you guys know all about by now. If you don't know about that, I talk about it in many of my videos, and you're going to read about it in my book that I just published, The Recovering People Pleaser. I tell, the story of what happened in that. So, for the most part, I do. It's in several places throughout. You'll get glimpses of that story. Now, when I was going through that, I knew that my fear was so high, my nervous system was going crazy, and it was very difficult for me to tap into my intuition. Like I couldn't even remotely see it. It could have been an elephant in front of me and I wouldn't have seen it or heard it or felt it. Okay. So I remember asking God and saying, God, I need you to guide me. I need you to guide me. I know you're here. I know you got my back. I said, but I can't hear right now. I can't see right now. I'm like, please make it obvious. And I said, make it louder, make it bigger, make it um, unquestionable that I cannot miss this thing. And some of the things that happened were so profound. Again, it might have been like a bigger billboard or a louder song while I was quiet, or it was more out there, but it still had that breath. It still had that expansiveness. It still had that opening type feeling to it. Okay. So yeah, there are times when we're going to say, I need a little help here, bros. Can you up the volume a little bit? Can you up it a little bit? And don't be afraid to ask for clarity. That's another great thing. When you ask for clarity, you're like, I think I'm getting this, but I'm not sure because my overthinker, um, Andrea was saying, she was saying the fear comes up first. Maybe it's her ego. Yeah. When you're like, okay, I think I'm getting this, but I'm not really sure. Okay. I'm not really sure what's happening. So can you give me more? You're inviting universe in, you're inviting God in to assist you. God, guides, guardians, angels, ancestors. This is who I talk to because I'm not sure I haven't done all that things where I've figured out the name of my spirit guides and all that stuff. That's not my wheelhouse. Do I believe it's a thing? I do. Do I believe our ancestors help us from the other side? I absolutely do. In fact, some of them have their sacred contract is I'm going to be here till X amount of time, and then I'm going to help you I'm going to become your angel on the other side. So I believe all those things. So I don't know who I'm talking to. So I call the whole lot in God, guides, guardians, angels, and ancestors. GGG. It's a full house. GGGAA. I call them all in. Anytime I do a prayer, I'm like, God, guides, guardians, angels, and ancestors. Please help me. I have this. Can you show me whatever it is that the deal is? And they do. And if I don't get it, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm getting. Remember, free will is here. So if you want to have a better intuitive experience to start to fine tune your experience, Get into communication with your people. You got a divine team, guys. We all have this divine team. It's out there for the taking. It's there to assist us. I started out this broadcast with this sentence. I said, God didn't come to a slow roll, throw us off the bus, and say, good luck, see you after a while. That would have been cruel. Okay. That would have been cruel, and none of us would sign up for it. All of us would say, that's BS. I'm not going there. Earth, what the hell? Only crazy people go there. Only crazy souls go there. No, we signed up for this because we have this connection. We have this guidance to lead us through the tough things. Okay. It's there for us. It's there for us, and it will show you exactly what you need to do. And another important thing is to ask for your next best step. Okay, this isn't always about getting some, sorry guys, I'm a chapstick junkie. I gotta find my chapstick. It's dry here in Arizona. Where is it? Oh, here it is. This isn't about, learning it all in one step, because we don't learn like that. Okay, we sometimes have to take things a step at a time. Sometimes we can take that big leap. Sometimes, but only Spirit knows that. Spirit knows what we're ready for. God knows what we're ready for. So if you say, reveal to me my next best step, whatever it might be, whether it's a half an inch forward or it's 3 feet. And it's not in feet, it's not in measurements, just the words I'm using. Okay. When you ask for that, it will come in the way you want, as long as, this is again so important, your heart and mind is open. Because if Spirit feels resistance from you, or any side part of trying to control, you're not coming from your pure place. Okay. You're coming from some type of ego thought or need to control. So if you're in that place of you really want to know, like when I hit my knees after my tsunami and I was like, God, help me. I don't know what's happening here. I was in such that place of surrender and openness that you guys hear me say this all the time. God was my life coach. I got this message and I followed it. Then I got this message and I followed it. And I got this message and I followed it. See what I'm saying? And then pretty soon, boom, 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 the healing happened. And here I am today, an international number one bestseller. Who knew? This was not what I had signed up for. No, at no point in my journey did I think I was going to become an author of 2 books, which is probably going to turn into more, nor a public speaker. If you would have told me that in my 20s, I would have been like, here's a good one. That's what I would have said. Cheers. That's what I would have said. Okay, so let's keep going on, because I want to get to how we can really cultivate this. All right. I meant to tell you this story about in 4th grade. I'm going to tell you guys this because I did say, and in case anybody's still listening to that. But first, I want to check in with my messages. Andrea said, yes, my ex-husband said that to me all the time, and he was cheating on you. Sister. Right. I mean, the gaslighting, right? The gaslighting. And this is why it's really important to get so in touch with our intuition, because we don't fall for gaslighting. When we know what we know, we don't fall for that. So someone could be over there doing their shenanigans at us. And again, this is about reclaiming our personal power. This is about becoming our own authority. Okay. When I know what I know, and someone comes at me with some sort of ish, talk me out of it, usually there's a put down involved somehow, because their ego's trying to diminish you and make you small and shut you up. When I'm just like, no, keep coming at me. And then my thing ends up coming true, right? Or it manifests, or it shows up. And I don't say manifest because I'm not manifesting it. It's an intuition. When that thing ends up coming to pass would be a better way to word that. I'm like, who knew that? Okay. See what I'm saying? So don't try to get validation from other people about your intuitive hits. It's going to set you backwards, because people aren't getting your hits. It's about your life, your journey specifically. Okay. And isn't that great? You got your whole ass divine team over there. Those guys are over there going, yeah, what do you need from me? They're waiting. Put them to work. And don't be afraid to use things like divination cards. People call them oracle cards, those type of things. Don't be afraid to call upon things, or to open your book and say, God, guides, guardians, angels, ancestors. And what was the other one? And open your book. You can just say God. I just say God because it's the all-encompassing of all of it. Universal energy, love, whatever it is. And you go brrr, and you open a book and there's your message. Okay. As long as your heart is open to receiving, you will get the message. If you're blocking it at all, you're not going to get the message. And if you do get a message, you're going to discount the message because internally you're not energetically aligned. It is in that receiving mode, that quiet mode, that those messages are going to come, and we're going to recognize them. And also, I'm going to switch now into, oh, I didn't tell you the story about the fourth grade. Let me just tell you this real quick because I keep getting off topic. Typical Kristen. I just digress all over the place. All right. When I was in fourth grade, my mom had this friend. He was a guy friend, and just her friend. She wasn't doing any hanky panky stuff. And actually a man that was staying at the resort that she worked at, and she, for whatever reason, she had met him, and they were talking, and she's a friendly lady. And anyway, at some point, he was like doing long term stay there, and he had a daughter. And so at one point, he's like, "Hey, do you have any kids that, would want to go to see the ice capades with us?" And, this and that. So a couple of neighbor kids, because what you did back then, because it was the reckless 70s. Gen X here, right? We're feral. We just were left to our own devices. But anyway, she's like, "Oh, yeah." And me and a neighbor kid went. He came. But anyway, I'm standing outside of my driveway and I'm going to the ice capades. Again, raised with a household of boys and a frugal father. There's no way in hell I was ever going to get an opportunity to go to the ice capades, right? That was like my little girl dream, is to see all these people floating around in ice on their ice skates. But anyway, I didn't want to go. It was like giving me a pony and me saying no. I didn't want to go, and I was so young and so sweet and so little, and I was fourth grade, and I said, "Mom, I don't want to go." She said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna have fun." She was a people pleaser, and she was probably trying to people please this person. And I was like, "But I really don't want to go." And she was like, "No, you're gonna have fun. This and that." She goes, "Well," finally she said, "Why don't you want to go?" And all I could say was, "I don't like him." That's all I could say. I don't like him. And I will tell you this, to that age in my life, I had never said that about an adult, ever. My mom kicks herself for not recognizing the signs, by the way. And we had to have this conversation when I moved in with her and lived with her for 5 years. I had to talk to her many times about this, but I'll tell you that in a minute. So I was like, I'd never said that about an adult. I don't like him. That was the only words that I could come up with being 10 years old. But what it was I was getting a vibe, you guys. My intuition was like danger, danger, danger. I think it was clairsentient because it was a clear feeling. All right. That's what I meant to say about clairsentient. It's an energy. It was like I was picking up on this guy's energy and it wasn't good. I don't know what was happening, but it wasn't good. And she made me go. So it went him in the front seat, his daughter in the next seat. I sat directly behind him. 10 years old. I didn't want to look him in the face. I didn't want to be near him. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want anything. My friend Jack, my mom's best friend's son, sat next to me. We're driving to the ice capades. The guy says, "Who wants to go to Disneyland?" And I think there was another kid in the car. And this cheer goes up in the car. "I do." Because what kid doesn't want to go to Disneyland? And I'm back there and I go, "I don't." And I wasn't a bratty little kid, but I was like, "I don't." And my friend Jack looked at me and he goes, "Why don't you want to go to Disneyland?" And I go, "I do want to go to Disneyland. I just don't want to go with him." And he was like, "Oh." Long story short, we get to the ice capades. He sits all the kids down and he says, "Kristen, come with me to go get snacks." Okay, so all the kids are sit down. We go out, we don't get snacks. He goes and sits me outside of this venue, okay, which is called the Coliseum here in Phoenix. Sits me outside the Coliseum on a wall. And I know how long it was because of a certain reason. He sat me out there for 2 hours, basically grilling me about why I didn't want to go to Disneyland. When we walked back in, literally ass hit the seat and the house lights went on and the show was over. I didn't get to see 1 second of the ice capades because guess what? Homie was trying to groom me. Okay. He was a pedophile. He later got convicted of pedophilia and went to jail. And I guess the story goes, what I'm remembering of it very, minusculely, is that the reason why he was in long-term stay at that hotel was because he had fled a state that he was in, okay, with his daughter. So long story short, as a child, I picked up on that, but it was energy. It was clairsentient. And it was like, I just don't like him. And my mom, oh my God, kicked herself over and over again through the years. I said, Mom, you didn't know. It's okay. You didn't know. Nothing happened, by the way. Nothing ever happened. And but she kicked herself because she was like, I'm so stupid. She would always say, I'm so stupid. I'm like, you're not stupid, Mom. You just didn't pick up on the signs. Her own intuition that was really great wasn't going off, probably because she was in her people pleasing mode and her trying to be approved of mode or whatever it was for her. So, this is what I mean is that we got to get super quiet so that we can let this stuff come in, you guys. All right. I would love for you guys to ask any questions you have right now, but then I'm going to launch into how you can cultivate this even more. And I actually made a list. So if you guys have any questions, I know there's always a delay with the questions showing up down here. So I'll start my list and you may not have any, and that's okay too. So let me go into this. Let me see. First, we want to distinguish the difference between the sound of it. Remember, fear is a shout, intuition is a whisper. It's the best way to tell you. A fear has emotions attached, intuition does not. This is the hands down best way you're going to know. Okay? There's a feeling there, and it's a vast different. Remember, ego's trying to control. God, source, universe, we have free will. There's no forcing, there's no yelling. It's very, very neutral, and it's a very calm, still voice or feeling or energy that we're picking up on. Okay? That's the best way. Um, then other thing is to get in connection with, become very adept at interpreting your body tells and the way it feels inside of you. Okay. So, uh, like I was saying with the ticker tape. All right. Now I know if I get that ticker tape, and which is kind of how that song came to me. It was like I saw the lyrics in my head, but there was audio to it too. So I was actually doing clairvoyant and clairaudient with that. I got both. All right. Just getting in touch with those things. If you have these things that come up, because you will, once you start to quiet your mind and allow space for I always say you have to provide the runway for the airplane to plane the land. Okay. It cannot land in a jungle. It's going to crash, right? You need the runway. So when we create space in our brain, we are providing the runway for the information to land. Okay. So get in touch with how this feels for you. It's going to be specific. You're going to know exactly what these things feel like for you. Then, if you don't follow it and the thing comes to pass, then you can say, all right, how did I feel when I had that message? That's how you're going to start to get more in touch with and used to and more adept at picking up on when your messages come. Because you're going to go, yep, it came in this way. That's why I know. And now, pretty much, I will say this to my husband because he's probably when I talk about this the most, but I'll say, no, this was an intuition because it came like this. And he just shuts up. He doesn't say anything anymore. Poor guy didn't stand a chance. Um, the other thing is that meditation, all right? Meditation is the best way that we can become a clear conduit of source. Not only that can we channel, all right? So we can, one of my prayers is before I coach somebody and I speak one-on-one with somebody is that I will ask God to allow me to be a clear channel of truth and wisdom for that person and to only deliver to me what is going to work for them right now. Here's where it gets fascinating. Sometimes I am with a client and I can't, I don't say I can't hardly speak because I can speak, but I find myself only saying very short sentences. And sometimes I do these type things where I just talk and talk and talk with them back and forth and back and forth. What I've noticed with those short sentences over time is that this person is very afraid, very private, very guarded, and I need to enter really slowly. I need to be deliver very slowly and very gracefully and intentionally so as not to overwhelm them with the fire hose effect. Some clients are like, fire hose me, baby, and they want all the information, right? And some people are not. So it's awkward to me being a talker to say less. So I had to get comfortable with the fact that I need to take this one step at a time, allow for gaps in silence, like where there's just gaps of no talking. I've had to do these type of things to actually deliver love to people, to become a messenger of truth and wisdom to somebody else. So you got to play with this, you guys. There's no one size fits all. And don't be afraid to ask any question that you want. If I said, when I was writing my book, I said, God, you got to slow down. Like, slow this down for me. It's just, I can't, I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm like, slow it down for me. I love everything I'm receiving, but please slow it down. I tend to get the fire hose effect a lot of time with things like this. You guys, like, why I tell you I have to write my notes, because I'm streaming pure consciousness. I'm sharing with you guys from that level, and it can come really fast for me. Sorry. Okay. The other thing is to become a clear conduit is it helps to dump social media. Social media's got us up in our brain like you don't know, and it's become habitual. Like, I've noticed that with myself. I'm someone who spends not a lot of time alone, but I enjoy my solitude and quiet time. But then I've noticed I'm getting in my car and I'm searching podcasts, like, to have something going. I'm in the shower and I've got a speaker above my shower and I'm like, okay, what can I listen to while I'm in the shower? And I'm like, no. And I'll put on binaural beats instead, or sound waves or something while I'm taking. So I'm like, we need to cultivate that quiet time, because we as human can get in a rush. All right. And that rush is going to slow us down. It actually will work against us, and we won't be clear conduits. So limit social media, you guys. I mean, honestly, I might swipe for honestly 10 seconds. Sometimes I go, oh, my daughter posted a story, and I might look at my daughter's. I'm rarely on there because of this reason, because it's too much information. I don't have enough time to be in my own head, in my quiet, in my energy, in my essence. Okay. It's too much. So consider dumping that. Ask questions. Okay, now we've talked about in a different sense, but I would also like you to say, help me, God, guides, guardians, angels, and ancestors, to get clear. All right. I feel like I'm supposed to quit this job. Like, it's there, but um, would it be better to wait a month? Would it be better to do it now? Okay. Here's what's interesting, you guys. We tend to know what we know all the time. But a lot of times we're clouding it up with the overthinking and the fear. So when you know what you know, I want you to give yourself permission. Write this down. Just because you know what you know doesn't mean you have to act on it if you're not ready. Okay? You'll keep moving along through life, and then God will give you a different. It's GPS. You know how you make a wrong turn, or you decide not to turn right there, whatever it might be, and the GPS recalibrates and it puts you back on course? God will recalibrate you. Okay. Just because you don't have the courage in that moment, or the whatever reason, to do this thing that your intuition is telling you to do, your inner knowing is telling you to do, you've not smucked up for the rest of your life. Okay. You haven't screwed the opportunity. There's more opportunities coming. You will recalibrate and be redirected. So don't feel like you're going to mess this up. This is an unending stream of universal intelligence that is there for you at any time. Okay. Questions, breath work. Who knew the power of breath work? Let me tell you that. I won't get into all the ins and outs of this, because you can research, you can Google, you can YouTube, find somebody that you like, ask somebody who's into breath work. Okay. Deep inhales and exhales. Okay. Deep inhales and exhales in all different types of cadences. All right. Whether it's, I used to inhale as deep as I can, and then I would exhale as slow as I can, and see how many seconds I could get out of it. Then I started something recently that was 4 in, hold, and then 8 out. And then it's a 4 and a 4 and an 8 and an 8. In through the nose only, out through the mouth only. Try different things. Breath slows us down. We get in pure presence when we're in breath. Now, the reason why meditation, what's the other thing I said? Oh, here's another one. We can doodle, we can get in nature, all of these things. Okay. The reason why all these things are present is are what's the word I'm looking for? Serving for us, is because they're putting us in pure presence. And in pure presence, we can hear better. Okay. Because we're out of the chatter mind. In pure presence, we are in right now. And in right now, there is no past haunting us, and there is no future scaring us. We're just right here. And that's the perfect landing strip. That's the perfect place to land the airplane. So I don't even ask questions sometimes. I just go on a walk, and all of a sudden, bloop, something comes in, and I go, That's a great idea. Okay. Some of us act from our intuition, don't even know it. We think it's just our really brilliant ideas, but it could be intuitive inspiration that landed for us. And we just think, hey, I had this great idea, right? Okay. Doodling, journaling, all these things, whatever you can do to release resistance. Test your hunches. We talked about that, which means you have a feeling about this thing, whether it came in one of the clairs, whatever clair it came in, you have a feeling about this thing and you wait and then you see that it shows up and you're like, okay, that was it. How did that feel like? Also looking in hindsight, how many times have you said, I knew that. I knew I should have turned left and should instead of right. I knew I should have bought that subscription. I knew I should have bought that book. I knew I should have said hi to that person. I knew I should have whatever it might be. Go to that restaurant. Whatever the thing might be. Those I knew it's. Okay, that I knew it is your inner knowing. It knows. Okay? So then you go, all right. The next step after that is what did I feel? How did that come in for me? It came by this, this, this. Okay. That's what it is. I'm going to note to God, note to spirit, note to the universe. Help me. This is one of my favorites. Help me recognize when that intuition drops in again. You can ask spirit for anything, by the way, you guys. It is unending. You can say, help me slow down my brain. Help me eat healthier. Help, whatever it might be. Ask, 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 and you will be helped because the outer realms cannot interfere with our free will. All right. It can't interfere with our free will, but when we ask, it is given. Okay. Nature, solitude, learning from your past, understanding what it feels like for you, whether it's in your head, it's a picture, it's a sound, it's a whatever, a ringing true. That's one of the big ones is that when we hear universal truth / universal wisdom, there's a ringing true. Why? Because we have a truth detector. All right. It's built in. It's built in just like our intuition is. It's part of our spiritual gift. Again, God didn't throw us here and say, yeah, have at it. Good luck. Laughing. See, after a while, God said, go and don't forget me. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the gift that you've been given to navigate this life with. Okay. We all have it. All right. Let me see if that's it. Remember that it's going to be quiet, it's going to be still, and it's going to be neutral in tone. There's going to be an expansive feeling about it. All right, you guys. I think that pretty much. Oh, the only last note I wrote here was that it's not if you have intuition, it's that you do have intuition. And if you're a man, a child, whatever it might be, this is not women's intuition. This is people intuition. Okay. Because we're all divine sparks of God. Every single one of us, even the bad people in history had their intuition. Okay. So before I dip out, I just want to tell you guys that this week, actually Tuesday of this week, I became an international #1 bestseller because my book posted, my book launched, which is called The Recovering People Pleaser, a spiritual guide to reclaim your true worth, divine spark, remember, your true worth and attract the love you deserve. And silly me does not have a copy of my book next to me. I mailed out all the copies I have to people that were getting signed copies, and mine's in my room. However, the link will be in the description below. But if this sounds like something that interests you, you can actually go to Amazon, type in The Recovering People Pleaser. It's going to come straight up and you can read the description and see if there's something that interests you. All right. The feedback I'm getting is absolutely, it's blowing my mind. It's like, it's belly on the ground, humble. Like I'm not even in praying knee possession, humility. I'm like belly on the ground. In fact, I would highly recommend if you're considering this book that you you listen to the podcast that I just uploaded this morning. And it is me having a conversation with my friend, Roman Wyden. Roman says this. He said, Kristen, I got your book because, I always support my friends to get their book. And he goes, I might read a little bit of it, but, so I got your book. He goes, I read the first page and I can't put it down. He messaged me the day of launch. The day of launch, where I'm still going, he's like, I can't put this book down. He's like, this is blowing my mind. It is, he said, so with 4 zeros, so good and so powerful. He's like, I needed this. It's timely, this and that. And he wanted to jump on Wisdom and have a talk with me. So what you're going to hear is Roman in real time processing through what he's learning in my book. Roman's brilliant, by the way. I love this man. If you're on Wisdom, you need to follow Roman Wyden. He speaks the truth. He's raw and real. I've never met somebody that is so vulnerable and open publicly. He will share with you what he's going through, but he talks about this in this talk. And I think we're on for like a little over an hour. It is audio only. I will tell you that. It was recorded on the Wisdom app, and then I uploaded the audio. And there's things you can do, like put the waveform on it and the audiogram. I don't know how to do all that. So you're just going to have a static picture, but you can play it while you're driving, or you can play it whatever. It's fascinating for me, especially to get the feedback I got from this book. Like it's blowing my mind. And the stuff he is saying, like one of the things he said in there was, he said, there's no fat in this book. He's like, it's just straight to the point. It's like, Kristen, he goes, I can't believe how easy it is to read, how deep and profound it is. And he picks out certain quotes that I said, certain words in there. And we discuss those. So if you guys are interested in that, you can find that. It's under my live tab, and it's the very first one. It's called Roman Wyden. If you're watching this later, I don't remember the title. Oh, I got my thumbnail over here. I don't remember what it was called. It's like the Recovering People Pleaser Conversation with Roman Wyden. So I invite you guys to listen to that next. And Andrea said, yes, I heard your stories. Yes, honey, I need all the help I can get with the laughies and the star face and the angel. I love emojis. And she's so grateful for my wisdom. So thank you. And I appreciate everybody who's dipped through this room. If you're new here, then please subscribe and turn on notifications. I love to hear from you guys. I'm here for you guys. I'm doing literally like my soul's calling against my thoughts of what I would be doing at this stage of my life. But here I am, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. I love connecting with you guys. And I am always open for any comment you have and any question you have. And I do my best. I put them in a queue and I do my best to address them. If it's something that requires more than just a quick type into the comment box, then I will actually upload a video on it in my Dear KB section. So where people like Dear KB, like Dear Abby, or that type of thing, I will answer the question. And a lot of times these questions, they're highly specific. So they don't get a ton of views, but I want to be here for you. I want to help you. So if you're new here, please subscribe, turn on notifications. And if you have someone that you would like to share this with, someone who wants to cultivate their intuition, or maybe you want to help your children cultivate their intuition. There might be some words that says R-rated for them, like pedophile and things that I've mentioned in here. So please be mindful when sharing things with whoever it is that someone who can handle the information. But I love you guys, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you take the time out of your day to listen and to watch these videos. So thank you so much. And until next time, remember that you matter. You matter. You've always mattered. You've always mattered. Okay? So go love yourself. Bye. Peace, everybody. And stream.